Derek Scott will call those games. They'll hit the road today for the dude, and we'll certainly get into some baseball with him here in just a minute. But Derek, we have a very pressing question to continue to honor the memory of the great Val Kilmer. Are you Iceman Val or Doc Holliday Val?
Is that even a question? Doc Holliday Val, man, come on.
Yeah.
That is the most iconic role ever. He was a big character in Top Gun. He was the center of the universe in brain cramping on the Western. Help me here.
Tombstone.
Yeah, Tombstone. Thank you.
Yeah.
I would actually rank his performance as Jim Morrison ahead of Iceman.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, people of a certain age.
Okay.
The Doors, that was a big deal when Oliver Stone decided to make that movie. And he went so far in character that he had to see a psychiatrist afterwards to try and get himself out of who he was as Jim Morrison. I mean,
wow.
He was a method actor to the nth degree. And I read something the other day after he passed away, and everybody's giving their odes. Jennifer Tilly, if you know her, she's an actress. She recalled a story that basically said when they were all going for their, auditions for that movie, everybody wanted to be in that movie. And she said when she went for the audition, it was kind of a cattle call. They had people paired together, Jims, the potential Jims with the potential Pamelas. That was his love interest. And they're running behind. So people are spilling out of the casting office. People are everywhere. They're in the lawn. They're in the driveway. And all of a sudden, this 60s convertible comes screeching up with Doors music just blaring. And dude jumps out of it and walks inside. He's wearing leather pants. He's barefoot and he has no shirt. He was basically already in character when he went for his audition, and the rest was just history. There was no question that he was getting that role. And Meg Ryan ended up getting the role of Pamela. And it was, if you were into their music, it was a pretty cool movie. And I certainly would put that ahead of Iceman in terms of his accomplishments.
His role.
Yeah, Iceman wasn't, what was he in that movie, 10 minutes? I mean, so.
Yeah, but yes. It certainly wasn't as prominent as the others, but he was good, and it did help transition. So last night, Derek, I decided, because I'm the original Top Gun is my favorite of the two, but I do love what they did with Maverick.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I think they're wonderful, obviously. So, but I've seen the original Top Gun 1,000 times. Of course, I'll probably watch it another 1,000 times. So I decided last night, man, I'm going to watch Maverick. After everybody went to bed, I laid in the movie room and watched Maverick. And the scene in Maverick where Tom Cruise goes to see him in his office, that's tough.
Yeah. Tom Cruise gets all the credit in the world for that, man. I mean, to make that part of the movie and it was really cool in the moment, but now with Kilmer having passed away, it just stands out even more as far as the significance of making sure that made it into that film. That was just awesome.
This is a very controversial question. It would take hours for us to be able to actually go through and decipher and maybe even try to finalize a top one or two. But I can make a legitimate argument, not to take anything away from the great Val Kilmer, but I can make a legitimate argument that Tom Cruise is the greatest actor of all time. I'm not saying he is. I'm saying it can be argued that he is based on his roles.
Yeah, no, there's no question. I mean, he is from his career path is kind of the last, in my mind, of that dying era where the breed of people who could play in a lot of different genres and really carry a film still just on name alone. There just aren't many other. I don't know who's out there right now that when you say that name, then everybody says, well, shit, gotta go see it. I mean, not knowing what the movie's about, you're at least a lean that you'll go to the theater. and see it. I don't know who's in that club now.
Oh, God,
I mean, he is still a movie star. He's a movie star. Those don't exist much anymore.
Yeah, you'd have to move the generations because you can throw like a Costner into that.
Yeah, but that's Costner's older than Cruz, or at least
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like they're the same generation. You're talking about who the next group.
And Costner, just to be honest, no, not as big. Does not have the breadth, not breathing, but there's not as wide and varied. I don't think the accomplishments aren't quite. If you stacked them all up, I think Cruz goes higher. He started earlier. He was huge as just a pup. When you talk about all the right moves and obviously risky business and cocktail. I mean, I'm trying to remember the one he made where he was a soldier at a military school. That was way back, and now I can't remember what it was called. But
are you talking about Men of Honor? No.
This is older than that. He was a soldier. He was basically like he was at the Citadel. You may not even know of it, but anyway.
Taps?
Was it Taps? May have been Taps. Sounds familiar. When you said that, I'm like, that might be it. But anyway.
Might be.
Yeah.
Let's pull the audience here. Let me pull up the handy dandy Nana's Porch chat. Men of Honor. I meant A Few Good Men.
I knew what you meant.
Okay, Craig said Hope said Taps, so it's Taps.
Okay.
She's never wrong.
Yeah.
Well,
wasn't he in The Outsiders?
He
one of that wide array of characters in The Outsiders.
I believe he was. Yeah. Now that you're saying all this,
Phil says yes.
Yeah, he was in
He wasn't Pony Boy, but he was in there. So yeah.
Okay, so he hopes the Tom Cruise expert. Yeah, he's just Tom's very versatile. He can do it all. I mean, gosh, Rain Man. I mean, man, way to go, Tom. And he keeps his head down. He stays out of all the BS. All right, Derek, let's hit on some hoops and we'll hit on baseball because lunch is coming up. If you're anything like Stuart Lake, you don't want to be late for that. As we all well know. But let's start with the Final Four. Clearly, we just talked to Brad a little while ago about the ladies' stuff down there at Amalie Arena. But, hey, you've seen a couple of these teams on the men's side. Gamecocks lost by 4 total points to both Florida and Auburn, but you had all 1 seeds for the first time in 17 years. How do you think it's going to go?
The irony in that the 2 closest losses, most bitter pills to swallow are against those 2 teams. The best 2 that you can argue you played all season based on the seasons they put together. The irony of that. I have no idea how that's going to go. And that's the beauty of it, man. These are the 4 best teams. And, I saw a column, CJ Moore, great college basketball writer. He said this when the bracket came out, just sure it's boring, but this is the year, man. This is the year you go all chalk. And he explained why the gap between the 1s and the 2s and everybody else in terms of their efficiency ratings was so massive that it just was hard to talk him out of believing all 4 would get there. Did I follow his advice? No, but I remembered it and kicked myself daily for having not followed it. And he was so right. So, no, I don't know. The only thing I think about any of it that I feel strongly about, and I'm not saying this for the hill of beans, I think Houston is getting undervalued right now. That's the only thing I'll say. Cannot believe that point spread is what it is in that matchup. Now, call me next week to eat those words. I'll be fine with that. But I really think that Houston bunch, man, I mean, they're the best defensive team in the country, and now they're not bad offensively like they've been in a lot of these great defensive teams that Kelvin Sampson's put together. They've got guys that can make shots, perimeter shooters. I think they'll have more for Duke than Vegas does. And I don't know if Vegas just has that number up because so many people just tend to bet Duke. But that's the only thing I would even hazard a guess on in terms of how this thing turns out.
Yeah, I got to give some credit to our buddy John Strickland on that, too. He's been saying it for months. He said, I'm telling y'all, everybody on the East Coast just doesn't pay attention to Houston. I'm telling you how good these guys are.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the matchup to me is, as good as Flag is, I'm not sure he's dealt with anybody as good defensively and as physically developed as JoJo. Can't think of his last name right now, obviously, until we didn't play them. But
we just
I mean, that guy is going to be a problem. If put it this way, if Flag has his way and puts up the numbers he's been putting up against that defense, tip the cap and be done with it. He's your player of the year.
Well, and we got to remember too that it's just a quick I-10 drive west from Houston to the Alamo Dome in San Antonio.
JoJo Tugler, that's his name. Really, really talented, big, defensively elite. So we'll see.
6'8", 230. Yeah, I'm really excited. I think this has got an opportunity, both men, women, to be just an outstanding weekend in the Final Four. And because you look, the common fringe fan, Derek, that comes into the postseason or March Madness, if you will, for men's basketball, and again, I'm saying the common fringe fan now that does the brackets and throws out all the bets and this, that, and the other. What intrigues them is the unpredictability of the tournament. And there just hasn't been a ton of unpredictability in this year's tournament.
Right.
Most of it has been, largely chalk. I mean, there's been some outstanding games, but I kind of felt like once we got through that first round, it hit me. You know what I mean? It was like, yeah, we're gonna probably need to get down to the nitty gritty here so we can see the best brands of basketball compete. And
which is always in reality what makes the Final Four great. It's
right.
What makes the tournament great are the Cinderella stories and the small schools and so many upsets and buzzer beaters. That's never what the Final Four is about. Rarely do the Cinderellas that make the Final Four ever have much to say about the outcome once they get there. But this year, you can't have, if you like basketball, you can't be complaining about having these 4 teams there.
Well, maybe Carolina goes back next year. Who knows, Derek? They're doing their best to give you a couple of names you're going to have to work on in the offseason, like Christ Isendoko, for instance. But what do you make of we'll start just the transfers right now. You knew when we got to the offseason, well, probably throughout the year, you knew what they needed based on watching them play. And now this thing is beginning to come together, and there's a very familiar name who's coming back to Columbia, South Carolina. What do you make of this group?
What a world, huh? I mean, that the portal shows us something every year or month, for that matter, that you think you could never imagine happening. And certainly the Ohio State to South Carolina to Ohio State to South Carolina transfer portal story is one that will make Michi stand out. But when I see this, the first thing that I thought of was, well, here's the validation that they have been given a better budget to work with, because I'm telling you, there are a couple guys that are back here or are here that would not be if they were working off of last year's NIL budget. That's just a fact. And so, Lamont and his staff are able to be out there doing what they're doing. They're not done. They still have, I believe, a couple scholarships that they, plan to fill. And then there is the open-ended question of, what say you, Colin Murray Boyles? Are you bound for a third year here in your hometown in the capital city, or are you on to professional ball? And that will be a while before we find that out and figure that out. But the pieces they're assembling, I know how excited they are about the guys they're getting, the versatility, the number of guys who are wings, but that can handle the basketball. Yeah, I think there's every reason to be encouraged that they're getting back to what they did a couple of years ago in terms of identifying needs and filling needs with players that they believe fit the way they want to play.
Yeah, the latest is Kobe Knox, a guard out of South Florida. His brother plays for Cal, right, at Arkansas?
Brother Carter Knox is at Arkansas. Their older brother Kevin Knox played for Cal at Kentucky. Was a lottery pick. Great family bloodlines, and he is a guy. He's another one that I was just referring to. He's a wing, but he can handle. You're not going to be in a bad spot at times like we were this year. We didn't have enough guys on the court who could dribble and pass on a level that you thought could be helpful offensively against SEC competition.
Yeah, I was looking over his numbers. First of all, he's a career about 46, 47% shooter. But Derek, he's played in 97 basketball games in 3 years, and he has never averaged over 0.8 turnovers per game. That was a problem this year for South Carolina, but it looks like they're signing guys who A, can shoot, and B, as you just pointed out, protect the basketball.
Yeah, I mean, they know. I think they understand what they had to be better at. And you mentioned Creased. Creased is a guy that he's huge, but he's got, from what I'm told, he's got some BJ Mack in his game as far as shooting and passing. And you know that's what Lamont wants out of his bigs.
Yeah,
he does not want somebody who's just got to get down on the block and play low post basketball. That's where some of the problems arose this year, as the inability to space the floor when certain lineups were out there because you were missing players who could demand that a defender go with them and leave the paint and actually pose a threat to score or to make something or to help someone else get open.
Yeah, I think he's been the biggest unknown, at least amongst the fan base thus far. They you know how it goes, Derek. You got a transfer. Where'd he come from? What were his point or what were his numbers? Oh, he's terrible. I don't think he'd be here if he was that bad. That was an issue this year, as far as being able to facilitate the basketball, number one, from down low, but also just hanging on to it.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. You mentioned CMB. So this is such a hypothetical question that it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. And we don't know what he's going to do. For anybody wondering, that's not just hearsay. They really don't know what's going to happen here. Sure. There's a legitimate chance. If Colin Murray Boyles does return to South Carolina and Miles Studi is, as expected, gets that 6th year, and Michi is back, and Federico is back. Federico. Good luck, man. He's back, and Hugasuk is back. We kind of know about those guys. And then knowing what we know about this portal class, what when you start looking way ahead to when they begin practice in the fall and anticipating what we might see on the floor in November, what are your initial vibes from that? Again, the big if CMB returns to South Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, who knows how the pieces fit around him, because you didn't mention the freshman class. I mean, what will Eli Ellis have to say about that? And Walker. I mean, those are guys that they're not walking in here with the expectation that they're going to wait in line. And so, no, there's going to be a lot of pieces there. And that's the thing you didn't have, man. That's what you have to get back to. It's having competition in practice, having competition for minutes, having guys that if someone suffers an injury, that you don't have a huge void on the floor. I mean, that's where you got to get to. And then the final piece is, do you have a star that you can build around? And a lot of that will, of course, come down to whether Colin is looking at returning to college or not. And you're right. Nobody knows. And he doesn't know, I'm guessing, at this point, because you still need to hear what the NBA GMs and scouts have to say. Where would you land if you're in the draft? Right. Are you a lottery pick? Are you a first round pick? If you're a lottery pick, it's probably end of conversation. If you're a first round pick, but not a lottery pick, unlike 5 years ago, it's not necessarily end of story because of NIL. Right. And because Colin's everybody's unique, their circumstances, their situation. But being from here, having the ties he has here, having the relationships he has here, that stuff will impact the decision-making process for sure.
Were there any departures that surprised you a little bit?
No.
Okay.
I felt like there were folks who probably needed to hit the reset button. There were some folks who the expectation was the dollars they were getting last year would not be available this year. And like any of us, if someone tells you you're taking a pay cut, no matter the circumstances, what are the odds that you're going to go, well, okay, cool. Let's just play on. I think most people, when faced with that situation, their initial reaction is going to be, disappointment, frustration, and look for other options. And so based on those situations and what I anticipated happening, nothing I've seen yet has caught me by surprise.
Okay. The only thing that was maybe a tad surprising, then I'm going to get to baseball. Does Jamari Thomas have another year of eligibility that nobody knows
My
about?
knowledge, no. Okay. He is not the only person in the portal, though, that has raised eyebrows amongst people who were familiar with the circumstances where they went, wait a minute, what?
Yeah.
I think the folks who are in charge of the portal are just everybody's gun shy about lawsuits. So no one is willing to step up and go, no, you're out of eligibility. We're not putting your name in there. It's almost much more like, what's it hurt? Put your name in there. Then when other coaches see you and decide to evaluate you, they will obviously be looking at, well, how much eligibility does this player have left? Do they have 1 year? Do they have 2 years? Wait a minute. How's he have any? Okay, never mind. I don't even, to be honest, I haven't been able to come up with a good working theory on what the appeal would be if you like, for instance, as you mentioned, Miles Studi. Miles out of eligibility. Miles had a blood clot in his leg that took place after the medical hardship barrier had been passed. So he's got to appeal and ask for an extra year. But you understand what he's asking for. You understand what the basis or the grounds of his request are. I can't figure out, because Jamari was not in college during COVID, so he does not get the extra year there. He did not play junior college ball. So the Diego Pavia lawsuit that has opened up an extra year for a lot of players like Nick Pringle does not apply to him. He never seemed to have injury problems. He played full seasons. So, yeah, I don't have a good working theory there as to what the reasoning is for being in the portal or trying to pursue, another year of eligibility.
It's been a great day here. We've had got a couple of voices. Derek Scott currently. We had Brad earlier down in Tampa. Derek will hit the skies, not the road, the skies.
This year, we're hitting the skies.
Yeah, they're going to hit the skies for the dude. They'll head to Starkville, Mississippi. Gamecocks and the Bulldogs both off to starts that they'd rather not be off to, and both trying to get things turned around this weekend. Carolina coming off of that 10-run rule victory in 7 innings over PC. Maybe a get-right game, who knows, on Tuesday night, but also coming off of another disappointing sweep in the SEC. The Vols clipped them last weekend 3 times. Carolina had it. It felt like they had it. I was listening to you and Stu on Saturday, and you spoke for all of us in tone when things went wrong in the late innings there. But, this is an opportunity. These next couple of weekends, these are 2 teams who are expected to contend, and right now they're not. And so maybe South Carolina can kind of get it going. Derek, if you can, though, go circle a positive for this team on the weekend. We'll start with the pitching. I'll get to the offense in a minute. There's actually more good than bad right now than people think. But it is Jarvis Evans. I mean, this kid is becoming the most trustworthy / consistent arm that they've got. And the thing that I was talking to Will Crow about this yesterday, Derek, the thing that was so appealing in watching him pitch last weekend is, in this age of let's throw it as hard as we possibly can, Jarvis Evans was finding ways to stay under bat speed, and that was working against the Vols, who are one of the best hitting teams in college baseball. I know we're going to get the official rotation today. I don't know if anything's going to be moved or not. But certainly, I feel like for the first time in a little while with this staff, when he's on the mound, you feel like you got a chance.
Yeah, I mean, Jarvis has been very good this season. Obviously, he's only made a couple of starts in conference play, and they were under very difficult circumstances. Arkansas was on short rest and short notice, and in Fayetteville against that lineup. And then, of course, this past week, you're facing the best offense most folks think out there as far as, what they've got going on. I personally right now would lean towards Arkansas as the better team, but that's just my opinion. But nonetheless, you look at the numbers, and outsiders would be like, what, his ERA's 5 in conference play? What are you so excited about? He's given up 5 earned runs in 9 innings. But I'm very encouraged by what we've seen from Jarvis. Not just those two appearances, but obviously the way he stacked up quality outings in the non-conference. So yeah, I feel good about him on Saturday afternoon. And Jake has had moments. It's you don't necessarily love seeing him going out there on a Friday in conference play, but there's not a clear-cut alternative. So let's see how it works and see if he maybe got some confidence from what he did against Tennessee, because if you extract that, one inning, which was 5 unearned runs, and that doesn't exempt him from any responsibility, but it takes a lot of it off his plate in terms of what could have been that inning. Then, you see some competitive innings. The fact that he settled in after that and hung around, especially when you consider he couldn't get out of the first inning at Arkansas. I mean, I'm anxious to see what he can do to build on those, because you're back on the road now. How do you manage the scenery, dealing with adversity, dealing with the lack of home creature comforts? How does he appear? Is it a clear step forward from 2 weeks ago in Fayetteville? Because that's what it needs to be. We need to see 5 innings. We need to see 5 runs or less allowed. I'm not asking for crazy performance. I'm not asking for 6 shutout innings. I'm not a fool. But we do need to see a more competitive appearance. He's got the best stuff on the pitching staff. So we need to see better from him. We need to see Jarvis just keep doing what he's been doing and find a way to get one of those two and get Sunday to a rubber match. That's really where this team is lacking is, can we get one early here? They've got a great Friday guy. With whatever their problems are, it's not their Friday pitcher. Pico Cone has been outstanding for them. And so that's, again, as it's unfortunately, it feels like the last few years, we've said this a lot. Friday night's going to be an uphill climb. But, go out there and compete and see what you can do. Their offense has been very much on the struggle bus. You look at SEC numbers. Gamecocks in league player hitting 303, man.
Yeah.
And State's hitting 254. Wow. So can you go out there and continue to make it tough for them? And then can you find a way to translate the hits into some runs? Because it's not often I can remember seeing a team be 5th in the league in batting average and 13th in the league in runs scored.
Yeah. Doesn't equate. That's the issue. Well, and to better support what you're saying, they're hitting 303, Derek, against 3 of the top 6 staffs in the conference. I mean, you're talking about Tennessee, who's got the second best ERA in the league. Arkansas is right behind them, and then you got Oklahoma at 6. And quite frankly, I mean, these guys have done what they've needed. I mean, Paul said it last week, I think it was. Yeah, I'm tired of talking about getting on base. Let's talk about scoring some runs once we get there. You know what I mean? And that's been the problem. I'm curious what they're gonna do from a lineup standpoint this weekend too. And again, I think pitching is the bigger story for me. I do feel like this lineup is going to continue to better itself because the young guys are just continuing to play. They're not going to get worse. They might have a slump here or there, but they're not going to get worse. They will get better. Will they continue to hit Petry or Hall Petry in the 1-2? I know the other night they tried a couple of things against PC and put them in the 3-4. I did a quick numbers crunch the other day. Since they've been hitting back-to-back, which is North Carolina, Tennessee series, and PC, back-to-back in the lineup. Outside of the one game against the Vols last weekend on Saturday, which you could argue, they were 0 for 10. Had they maybe had 1 or 2 more hits in that game between Hall and Petry, they might have won it. But they're hitting a combined 357 and 4 balls have left the yard and 11 RBI when they're hitting back-to-back in the lineup I'm talking about in those last 5 games. So I'll be curious to see what Mainieri does with that, and how it continues to affect the lineup, because you make a great point. They're hitting over 300 in league play.
I think he liked what he saw from Nathan in the 3-hole. As he told me before Tuesday's game, Derek, we do not have the luxury of having a guy with his pop hitting leadoff. It'd be great if we had a lineup where we could put him in the leadoff spot and feel like we weren't wasting that productivity. And then as he said last night on Carolina Calls, if we do that, though, we've got to figure out the leadoff spot. He gave Caden Gaskin a shot because he said he felt bad that he was the only guy he really felt like on that roster who hadn't gotten a fair chance yet. And I don't like one-game tests. I don't think that's fair. But he didn't exactly seize the moment. He didn't kick the door down. And as you think about where we are right now with Jordan Carry-On, nobody thought that was going to be the case in February. And when he got the chance, he left no doubt. You could not get him out of the lineup because he was too productive. And somebody has to prove that in the leadoff spot. And the backside of that is, how much longer do you keep Henry Kazmar in the 9-hole when he's your best hitter by average in SEC play? What's the difference between 9 and 1? I mean, I know preseason the vision was Hall 1, Kazmar 2, Petry 3. That was how you thought it was going to shape up. How much longer can you keep him at the bottom of the order when he's competed as well as he has in 8 SEC games? He's 11 for 26. Can you really keep doing that, or do you have to try and maybe plug him in at the top of the order?
It's just that we've had these conversations around here too, Derek, and same thing with Carry-On, who's 15 of 36 in league play. But it's the age old. If we make the move and we pull them out of their comfort zone, are we compounding a problem here?
Right.
Do you now have a problem in the leadoff spot, and you got a problem in the 8-hole or the 9-hole?
Right.
And I think we've seen him try it. I'm not, I'm not going to try to ever manage over Paul Mainieri. That's not what I'm doing at all. But you can see it. You know what he's thinking. Golly, this guy's swinging the sticks, man. Let's put him in the 2-hole. I get it, but some guys can't handle it. So I don't know. I mean, that's been the inconsistency of the lineup. They've been able to hit.
Well, it goes to having the baseball is such a mental game. You have to keep guys in a comfort zone. You don't want them overthinking things. I mean, if you've noticed, Kazmar's playing relatively shallow at shortstop. He is not at the back of the dirt. I'm talking about when the bases are empty, when there's nothing going on. He's playing closer to double play depth. I asked Paul about it, and he's like, I don't like it, but the kid believes that he gets better hops up there because I don't think it's good because it cuts down on his range. But you know what? Since he came to me and started doing it, he hasn't made an error. And he obviously had a few of those early. So until it is magnified, until it is identified as, okay, you didn't get to that ball because you're playing too shallow. He goes, as he said, Derek, you ever heard of a placebo? I said, yeah, I know where you're going with that. So just don't mess with the kid. Let him play where he is. And you might be right about letting him hit where he is too. I don't know. But they've got to, if you're going to move Nathan to 3, the goal is to put him there so he has guys to drive in. Well, that means somebody's got to hit in front of him that gets on base.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have the answer. We'll see. I mean, I there's certainly so much that is encouraging about the lineup. I mean, Bo Hollins, and Scobie. These guys, man, they're going to be really good here for a while, And Bo is just, his swings get better every game. The game is so much slowed down for him compared to what it was. It's been fun to watch him, and from the pitching staff stuff, Derek. One of the numbers that's going to be really interesting this weekend, that the Gamecocks will roll out 2 left-handed starters in McCoy and Evans, and whatever that looks like. Mississippi State overall this season hits .357 versus lefties. So that's a little bit of an issue. Now, they haven't hit as well in league play, but it's a little bit of an issue. And then you got the bullpen question. You got some guys who can certainly go out there and give you an inning, but when you ask them to give you a little bit more than that, it gets a little dicey. Right. From time to time. So I'm just curious. I mean, at some point in time, they got to take the bull by the horns. You got to own a role. You got to go out there and you got to execute. If they don't, they'll keep losing. If they do, they'll win games. And had they already done that, this 18-12 record, they'd be at 21-9, and they'd be a 2 seed somewhere right now projected.
Yeah. The margins are pretty narrow when you get to this level. We all know that.
Yeah. Well, safe travels to Starkville. I understand there's like a tour or something tomorrow morning of football facilities or something. Have you heard about any of this yet?
No, and count me out.
Well, apparently we got to count Lake in because we got to move him up on his airtime tomorrow. So I guess he's going to go look at his football facilities.
Stewart's a big fundraiser now. He's got different motives than he once did. He's changed his MO on us a little bit.
He's going to be walking through FaceTiming with Coach Tanner. Well, check that out, Coach.
Who's to say? But no, he and I. That's the beauty of it. Everybody does their own thing. Let's just make sure we're ready to hop in the car and drive over to the dude at the same time in the afternoon. And good news is the forecast has changed. It looked positively dreadful on Sunday for most of the week, and then this morning I look at it first thing, and I think we're back to believing we can play 3 games in 3 days. Because if you had asked me this time yesterday, I would have told you we'll have to play 2 somewhere because we're not playing Sunday. But it looked a lot better today.
Okay. We always ask Lake this. He doesn't know. What's the peanut joke this week, or do we have to wait till tomorrow night to hear that?
It's not a joke. It's a fact.
And
there will be no exposure to our homegrown facts. Thank you very much. You don't have that kind of juice, man. I'm not giving that up.
That gets my wife every time. She's like, didn't realize that. Man, who does the research? I'm like, I don't know.
Homegrown facts, man. South Carolina Peanut Board does the research. They give us our material. All we are the conduit to our audience.
Well, they had a big day yesterday. It was National Peanut Butter and Jelly Day. So hat tip to all the peanut farmers. Derek, thank you. Safe travels to the Magnolia State and bring them back a series win.
All right, guys. Take care.
Thank you, buddy. There you go. Derek Scott, the great voice of Gamecock baseball.